Alright, welcome back. We're going to be recording another chess video here. So let's begin by starting our search here for a rapid time-controlled game and see what we get here. So we have the black pieces here against about an 1800. So we're playing a queen pawn game here, and the response I use is knight to f6 and e3 already signals to me, I mean, this is a little bit unambitious. I don't know why he wouldn't play something like bishop out first. Maybe he wants to fianchetto his bishop here. So we will go for our standard King's Indian development here. So let's play bishop to g7 here and castle. All right, and we have what's called the Stonewall pawn formation here, where he puts a pawn on f4 here. And we can do, well, first we can respond with castling here is one way we can play this. And now we can do what's called kind of an anti-Stonewall move. We can do c5 and then maybe push d5 here. And the point of c5 is we can most likely win this pawn back with a queen check. And we're chipping away at these central pawns here if we are allowed to take. So we can play c takes here. Okay, and he actually takes with the e pawn, which is interesting. I think that's actually pretty solid, because now he has this pawn formation here that makes my bishop bite on granite. But let's actually probably go with fianchettoing our light square bishop here. I think I'm going to take time to do that, because it is likely that our opponent will castle kingside here, right? Yeah. So I think we want this bishop to be on the long diagonal here in order to exert maximum control here. And now we can play pawn to d6. This knight is a little bit annoying on e5 here, and I don't know where it is necessarily, I don't know where it's going after that, so we can play d6 here. I think is probably the most natural continuation here. And the knight just goes back here. And now I think the last order of business probably is deciding how we want to develop this knight here, because d7, I don't see any real great prospects for it. Well, maybe we want to develop the knight to a6 is a valid possibility here, and then go to c7. But let's see here. We could also develop it to c6. Is something that we shouldn't have to forget about here. c6. Kind of the most straightforward developing move for a knight. Doesn't look bad either. And this also reinforces let's say the e5 square. So does e5 look appealing here? Well, I would think it would have to be prepared here first, most likely. e5, because we run in it takes. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe we have knight g4 at the end of the line. e5, but then if d5, drop our knight back to e7 probably. And takes, I think, is probably a blunder. For tactical reasons. But yeah, I think e5 is actually, I don't think we have to set up this move, oddly enough, because I think tactics somehow are in our favor in this line here. So we can take back with a pawn here, and I don't really mind if the queens are traded. And now we have like knight to g4 here, I believe. Wins back the pawn in a sense. By retargeting the pawn. So he might have to, I mean, he can't reinforce it because I just added 2 attackers to it. So he might have to desperado it in order to try to ruin my pawn structure a little bit. Might be the best move for him. But we have instead bishop to b3, kind of an interesting move. So I think definitely now, maybe we actually want to take with this knight. It doesn't make much of a difference because he'll probably recapture anyway. But taking with this knight opens up our bishop, and it's the less developed piece. What if he plays something like this? Is a question we can ask. And that is a valid question because then the knight will have to drop back to a goofy square. So let's calculate here, here, and we can't drop back here because we lose guard, we'd lose protection of the knight. So I think maybe this is slightly more safe for now. I think taking with this knight is slightly more safe. And now we take back probably with the knight because it's more important to open up this bishop for now than this bishop that's just biting on granite. I would say is a pretty simple way to put this. And now we probably will want to look to either get our rooks to the second rank or weaken pawns on these diagonals here. So we have bishop to g5. We could even play f6 here. Is kind of a, no, we can't because it's pinned, right? So we can't play f6, which is a little bit annoying. We can't play rook here because knight takes. Comes with resignation, but we can put our rook, I guess, on the second file here on our second rank and add a defender here. Is one way to go about this. I think a solid way to go about this. And against something like bishop here. Okay. Now I'm looking at this and saying, is there a way to remove the defender of this? And let's see. I think we may even be able to sacrifice our rook here for like maximum initiative. Like rook to d8 looks kind of just like a blunder, but after rook takes here, the bishop has to move most likely, right? And then we're threatening devastating attacks here. The thing after rook d8 is he can simply just like move his knight. But anywhere he moves it, like forward basically, will be taken by, let's see if there's an alternate way we can do this. Let's actually start with something like h6. And if he can't move back here, so he will most likely move back here or here. Then we can play something like this or this, respectively. I think starting with h6 is also a solid way to go about this. h6 comes with tempo. Okay, and now we can play this g5, and if takes, I may actually want to take here. But I could play something like this. I mean, I think there's a lot of good options here. Could play something like rook here, but then our rook will likely come to defend. So let's see, g5, takes, 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 check, here, check, here, check, there, check, there, check, there, takes. I think this is like devastating if he takes the knight. And then if he moves back here, we play this. We play knight to g4 here. Okay, I think this tactic is devastating now. Just absolutely devastating. And after like rook guards, we come here. Rook here, check here, takes, takes. Okay, so we have the rook guarding the bishop here, but this doesn't, I guess, diminish kind of the devastation that is going on the back rank here. So we can go this at a minimum, we can go like this, and now we can take this bishop, removing the defender of this square, and then take here. And this is just, I mean, back rank shenanigans going on here, not to mention other stuff he has to worry about. All right, so now to play simply, I mean, I can take this pawn. But then that allows kind of equally nasty things here on our back rank. So I think, let's see. let's see the best way to go about this. I think I like just removing one of his rooks off the board here. And just using like massive pawns I have here on this side to promote, simply put. But we can activate our rook first, actually. And if here, well, maybe that's a little bit nasty. So maybe we want to somehow prevent his rook from reaching. I think we can go with this. I think this is still fine. I think here we can go bishop here, disconnecting his attack of the f7 pawn. And I don't really care too much about these pawns. And we'll see why, is because we can commit also war crimes on the queen side here. So now we can do something like this, reinforcing here, and response to rook takes, we have this. And this. And now we look to promote our pawns. So kind of a neat little tactic here. After rook takes, I think we can get away with taking here because his bishop is pinned. So we can make a move like king to g2 here, starting to advance our king. Takes, we can actually take here, I think. And then look to trade. So we have king here, and now we can start advancing our pawns very happily here. And this is essentially already inevitable promotion here. So this was a pretty clean game, I would say. All right, we have the other pawn running, probably in, okay. We can keep this very simple. We can take. But, I mean, just advancing here, he also has no way to defend it. Maybe takes. Yeah, I don't think he has a way to defend this. Maybe he's relying on this. When we promote with check, take here. It's essentially game over at this point. Yeah, but we promote with check. And can take here and take back with the queen. And this is game over for our opponent. I mean, what's the simplest way to do this? Probably just here. And you can see how I'm constantly asking myself, like, what is the simplest way to win here? Is we're just going to promote like this. Promote another pawn. All right, we have this pinning, And can we take and promote? No, because the king will catch it. So let's go here first. And then I think we can take and promote. King here, takes here. We can also advance our pawn and keep it away from even needing calculation. All right, so we have something like here. Here, threatening the bishop, promote another queen, take. All right. And we can block this square of promotion. And if we want to even promote a second queen here, it's probably the easiest way to go about this. Very easy. And now we have a simple ladder mate here after our opponent moves. So, I mean, we can take with check, since it comes with check here. And now we just have to make sure our moves come with check so we do not stalemate. So something like this. This. And now we have set up a ladder. And we do not stalemate our opponent. Okay, I mean, there's several ways to mate, but simplest here. Ladder mate. So let's analyze this game. It was a queen pawn Indian game. But d4, knight f6, and e3. I think e3 already may be an inaccuracy here because normally you want to develop the bishop out before you create this pawn chain, right? So g6, I'm going with my king's Indian setup here. Bishop g7, and we have kind of a Stonewall type pawn structure, and I just choose to castle here before chipping away. Now c5, definitely a method to chip away here at this stone wall of a center. And then d5 could have even been a follow-up. d6 here definitely as well, is like moving into a Sicilian type of position. You could see like it's a Sicilian pawn structure after that, but I just kept it a little bit simple. I was actually expecting probably c takes, like maintaining a Stonewall type structure. So this kind of surprised me. So I played b6 here. I guess is inaccurate because of f5. So I guess maybe e6 to prevent that is more prophylactic and better. But we didn't have f5. We didn't have to deal with that. So after this, I developed my bishop. Still, he could have played f5, but now d6 is very natural. Knight back to f3, and knight c6. And now, I think I already played e5, yeah, which moved into a very tactical line. I didn't even have to play something like that. I could have played prophylactically with e6, queen d7, or queen c8, it says are better moves according to the engine. But takes, 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 and now I have the move knight g4, so he's only temporarily up a pawn, right? So I was expecting probably e6 would be a desperado to ruin my pawn structure, but now after this, I chose to take with the knight, which I thought was a little bit safer here. So knight G takes, and then knight takes E5. And after this, I had rook to D7 here. And here, like, my tactical alarm bells are ringing. So I first played H6. I looked at this a while, but I found H6. And then after bishop to F4, G5, and bishop takes, you actually take the knight here because of the threat of a windmill tactic here. And you're not even down material. That's not even a sacrifice because you've taken the knight. So the rook moves away, and now rook takes G2 check is just devastating here. Bishop takes is still most accurate. And then the rook scoops up the last pawn here on H2. And then I thought, well, let's play this very simply. Let's just use our now massive pawns on the king side here to promote and win the endgame. So I exchange rooks, try to keep it simple for myself, and then rook d8, bishop d5, blocking the opponent's ideas here. And after c4, we just reinforce with bishop e6, and we have this counter punch here, rook d2 check, and taking. And here I calculated that after takes, we have this tactic, take because the bishop is pinned here. So I can actually just play king g7. And so he reinforces this pawn, but that brings the king away from the defense of the queen side here. So now the pawn is inevitably promoting. After promotion with check, we take the rook. And then, yeah, this is just very simply winning here. I would hope even like a double-digit ELO opponent could probably win this with black here. So we have checkmate. So that was an Indian game. I can go into an analysis, I guess, of the opening. And this kind of reminds me of a game I had kind of recently where it was an opposite side fianchetto King's Indian type game. But let's look at it from the black perspective here. D4, knight f6. And then E3, I guess, is a move. But I think after bishop to G7, like the fianchetto here, a way I've seen a lot of, or a different player in my previous game play this is B3, bishop B2, fianchettoing the opposite counterpart to the King's Indian bishop here. So something like knight f3 here, and then like c4 would still take this into a variation of the King's Indian, but I've seen like b3, castles, bishop b2, and then something like d6, and then I think my opponent went knight e2. So that is kind of similar to a previous game I've had, but our opponent didn't, I don't think, even fianchetto this bishop. He just played like a Stonewall type setup. So we had bishop to g7 and not knight f3, but rather we had f4 here, bishop to g7, and then you already have like, so bishop to g7 and then knight f3. After that is kind of a Stonewall type pawn structure, but except your bishop kind of is blocked in here. It's a little bit, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a way to play this. But I don't know, something after like castles, then we can already probably chip away with c5 on the next move, like bishop to d3. And c5 is a way to chip away against this, and the point is that after taking, you can win it back with queen a5. Let's say like just knight comes out, then you have queen takes c5 is a simple way to do it. And now you have like pretty strong initiative, and you've kind of ruined his Stonewall structure. So oftentimes they don't take, they play c3 instead. And now I guess even a stronger theme you could go for here is d6. And this is like kind of a King's Indian transitioned into a Sicilian pawn structure here, you can see. So after castles, you can now take on d4 or play like knight c6, kind of a Sicilian move, because they cannot play d5 here. It's guarded by the knight. So after like d takes here, and now like all your pieces are pretty happy here on their squares. And then white is left here with kind of a goofy formation of pawns with a weakness on the pawn on e3 and a d5, or the d4 square, I mean. Maybe it could be reinforced and kept here. The idea a lot of times in the Stonewall is to try to play f5. And oftentimes, like even after that, like something like, I mean, that's just blundering a bishop. But I'm trying to say, like, if they're going for f5 here, like they play e4, you can oftentimes play e6 to try to just blunt this idea here. I mean, this wouldn't be a situation where it's actually active, but you could see in the game definitely that like the computer wanted me to play e6, so as in order to blunt the idea of f5. So that will be the rest of my analysis on, I guess, the Stonewall was the type of setup that our opponent went for. Yeah, and we defeated with opposite side with double bishop fianchetto was pretty much the main theme there, and looking for those type of tactics. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.